Companies often make themselves look more sustainable than they actually are. This is called greenwashing, and it's a problem for consumers and investors alike. Today we're going to talk about how to avoid greenwashing. Consumers are often willing to pay more for products that they think are sustainable, and this gives companies a really big incentive to charge more for those products. But the problem is, green products aren't always as green as they seem. Greenwash products can be anywhere. They can be in your grocery cart, in your cleaning supplies, but they can also be in your investment portfolio. And before we go any further, I'd just like to note that I am not a financial advisor and this is not personalized investment advice. So when we're talking about investments, greenwashing can look like a lot of different things. Maybe a fund is labeled as sustainable, or maybe a stock discusses company policies that are a little more green than they actually are. So one of the ways that you can avoid this in your investments is by really doing your homework. And there's a set of measurements called ESG, which is known as Environmental, Social, and Governance Standards. And these measure all kinds of things, from a company's carbon emissions to their diversity of their workforce to how much their CEO gets paid. And these are the kinds of things that you can look at when you're deciding on whether or not you want to invest in something and how sustainable that investment is. So by investing in ESG, you're essentially investing in companies that have invested in themselves and invested in having less risk than other companies. For instance, if you have one company that has a robust sexual harassment policy, they'll likely have fewer sexual harassment lawsuits than a company that doesn't. These are the kinds of risks that ESG looks to mitigate, and if you have a greenwashed investment, you may not be benefiting from having less risk than if you have a much more sustainable investment. So ESG looks at environmental factors, social factors, and governance factors. Environmental really just means things like, how does a company do in terms of its carbon emissions? Social looks at, for instance, how diverse a company is, and governance looks at how a company is run, such as how diverse its board is or how much its CEO gets paid. Over the last couple of years, there has been a huge influx of investors into ESG investments. I'm talking trillions of dollars. If you don't already have an ESG investment in your portfolio, you're not alone, but 78% of investors do plan on adding an ESG investment to their portfolio over the next 2 years. Between the COVID-19 pandemic and Black Lives Matter protests and understanding of disparities between class and wealth, there has been so many factors that have pushed people to invest with their values. To help us get a better understanding of how greenwashing can impact an investing portfolio, I brought in Sonya Dreizler, who has 20 years of experience in the financial sector, with the last 5 being in ESG and socially responsible investing. So Sonya, can you give us some tips on how to find some investments that may not be falling into the greenwashed trap?
So I would recommend that when you find a fund that you are interested in, take a look at the top 10 holdings of the fund to see how you feel about those companies and if it's resonating with the values that you thought you were selecting with this fund. There's a variety of different values-based screeners from a company called As You Sow that are great tools for this. And you can also look at the impact lists that Adesina Social Capital publishes on different race, gender, climate, and economic justice issues. All of those are good tools that are free to consumers.
What kinds of benefits might people see once they start investing in these more sustainable companies or more sustainable funds? How can that impact a person's portfolio, and also what is the impact that those investments can really have in the wider scope?
Pushing both from the inside with shareholder engagement and creating a conversation from the outside with divestment can be really helpful tools that drive change inside of companies. So divestment is a choice not to own something. And when one person with a small amount of money does that, it doesn't make a huge difference to the company. It may, however, allow the investor to sleep better at night. For example, if they really don't want to own tobacco companies because their grandmother died of lung cancer from smoking, they don't want to make any profit from that. And, divesting from tobacco companies can help that individual person sleep better at night. But one small divestment won't make a huge difference to a large tobacco company. What does happen, though, is when lots of investors join together and create community campaigns around divestment, it can create a larger conversation that can make changes in the industry. So the other piece is shareholder engagement, and that is when an investor or a fund representing a lot of investors brings an issue to the investment company and says, for example, we investors have found that you have this practice in your company and we don't want you to do it anymore because we think it is both bad for the community and bad for business. It is effective. We've seen it work many times, especially in recent years. It's been very effective and in the news a lot. And so those are pieces of the change that you get when you decide to work with or invest in mutual funds and ETFs that do these campaigns or shareholder engagement issues as part of their service to you as a fund manager.
How do you think greenwashing really can impact investor trust?
Trust in general is a huge challenge in the investment industry, and greenwashing is yet another challenge on top of that, because when investors do go invest their hard-earned money into a fund that they thought aligned with their values, only to later discover it owns private prisons or weapons manufacturers or fossil fuel companies or companies that have a history of discrimination against women and people of color, or whatever it is that is out of sync with your personal values, this further erodes trust. So it is a big challenge in the industry. It's a challenge for even inside of the ESG and socially responsible investing space.
A lot of companies make big promises about what they intend to do for the future of our planet, or what they intend to do with their diversity hirings, or any number of issues. But the reality is, these companies don't always follow through on those promises. So it is up to us as investors to do the legwork and figure out if these companies are actually following through. So one of the best ways to avoid greenwashing in your investment portfolio is to look at a company's impact report. This is a document that'll tell you all about their environmental initiatives or things that they're doing in their local community. And you can use this information to make a decision about whether or not you think a company is worth investing in. And you can find an impact report either on a company's website, or you can find it in the prospectus along with the other investment documents when you go to invest. One of the other ways is to work with a financial advisor that specializes in ESG investments, and they'll be able to help you find investments that align with your personal values. Lots of robo-advisors over the last year have come out with sustainable portfolios that will automatically help you invest in these more sustainable companies. And a lot of them follow ESG policies, and you can check and see the investments that you hold in your investment portfolio and make sure they align with your values. At the end of the day, where you put your money is your personal decision. But the thing is, you can have a real difference if you decide to put it in places that matter. So wherever you put it, whether it's with a robo-advisor, a financial advisor, or you're investing on your own, or even if you're just buying a carton of eggs, that decision is yours and it has a lot of power behind it. So choose wisely. Hi, my name is Alana Benson. I'm an investing writer with NerdWallet. I write a lot about ESG and socially responsible investing. If you like this and you want to learn more, you can read all about it on our website, and please like and subscribe.